You find me contemplating the creation of a crevice garden. What's one of those, I hear you ask? Well, crevice garden is a way of displaying alpines having split the rock into attractive slivers so that you can introduce the alpines and they look terribly natural. Now that's what I'm going to try and do in this lovely trough. So it'll be a crevice garden in a trough. Now, why do I want to do that? Well, I love rock gardens and scree gardens, but I don't have enough room for one of those. There's something about getting down to the detail of alpines that's particularly appealing. So I thought it would be a good idea to have them in this trough so I don't have to do a lot of extra work in the garden. I've got a fantastic stone trough. I've got some slate that I hope will split into pleasing striations. I've got the compost. All I need to do is go off to the greenhouse, see what we've got by way of plants. It's tempting to think that all rock garden plants like the same conditions, but they're a mixed bunch and you'll find some for shade and some for damp, some for acid soil and some for alkaline soil. I've chosen mine to cope with the bright light and extreme heat at the base of the west-facing wall of my house. They'll get lots of reflected light and plenty of neglect, so these are a very tough bunch. So, what have I chosen? I've got 7 plants here. This first one is Dianthus hematocalyx pindicola. Like all the pinks, good on limestone. Lovely sort of grey-green foliage, pretty little pink flowers, supposedly scented, although I can't really get any scent from just one. It's about to come out now, so it's going to be a picture all through June, July. It's from the Balkans. I rather like that one. I think that's rather good. The next one is Saxifrage. We've got Saxifraga cochlearis pseudovaldensis. It's a crusty saxifrage and it's just sending up its first spike, short spike of white flowers. Be in flower from June through to July. Because that's nice and small, I think that's going to be one of the ones that I'll be able to get into the crevices in my crevice garden. We have a phlox. This one, unfortunately, has just gone over. This is Phlox Zigeunerbloed, which is something about gypsy blood, I think. It's a Dutch word. Just gone over, but when the flowers were out, they were quite a bit more red than this, a bit less purpley. Lovely matte-forming plant. Starts flowering in April, goes through till May. This is Campanula cantata. It's a new hybrid. The Campanula is such an enormous group of plants, and there are so many that are useful for the garden. Particularly like this one, though. Very dainty blue, and it'll be in flower for the next couple of months, so that's going to be really rather nice, I think. Next I've got, this is a nice sort of semi-succulent one. This is Althanema colchetsii, which feels slightly fleshy leaves, slightly unusual for an alpine, but these very pretty, simple heads of lovely soft pink. I think that's slightly unusual. Again, a nice small root ball, so I should be able to get that into the crevices. I love this globularia. This is Globularia bellidifolia with these sweet little pincushions of blue and very attractive glossy foliage, which is slightly unusual for a rock plant. So I rather like that one. It'll be jolly good for limestone. And then, having just gone over, unfortunately, we had the yellow, woolly, soft, very tactile Draba unionensis from China. Again, dear little plant, so I can squash that into the crevices. So I think all in all, these are going to work pretty well together. Now I'm going to attempt to break this rock into nice, even, thin slices. Now, I haven't done this before. I have no idea how it's going to go. I may end up in casualty. Probably be quite quiet this afternoon. I'm going to use cold chisel and a hammer and just go for it and see what happens. I've been dreading this. Let's see what happens. Oh, it's starting to go. Be careful when you do this bit and make sure you wear eye protection. See, it's not going to break right the way through. Break off part the way down. Oh, well, never mind, that's all part of the charm and character of it. Let's keep going and see if we can salvage something from this. That's the spirit. That's what we're after. These beautiful thin pieces which we then put back together with soil in between, and then we can put the plants in, thus creating a crevice. Hey, look at that. Whoa, how about that then? So here we are back at the trough, You can see the trough's got a huge plug hole in the bottom, so I need to block that up so the soil mix doesn't fall out. So good old broken crocks, just to cover that over. Now what I discovered was that my beautifully cut pieces of slate will actually be lost if I just put them in the bottom of the trough, so I need to build up a little bit. So I found some spare bits of stone and slab. I'm going to put those in the bottom so that when I'm in a position to start using the slices to make my crevices, they'll be just standing slightly proud at the top of the trough, and I think that'll be quite attractive. So what about the compost or growing medium? Well, I've chosen John Innes number 3 because that's a soil-based compost that's going to have enough nutrients in it to keep these plants going for a little while. So that's great, but what about the free drainage? Well, in order to make it nice and open, we need plenty of coarse horticultural grit. So I've used 1 part of the John Innes number 3 to 2 parts of the grit, and that's given me this really nice open gritty mixture to use for the plants. Well, now it gets down to the point where we have to put some plants in, and I'm a bit nervous about this because I'm not sure I've got enough plants. I've only got 7, and you can see they come in these quite small pots, but my life would be a lot easier if they were simply rooted cuttings, and the only way I could do that would be to grow my own. So it may be that I just carry on using the plants I've got, trying to squeeze them in as best I can into the crevices, and then maybe as they mature I can take some cuttings to fill in the gaps. So having taken this one out of its little pot, I've got to try and, without damaging it too much, make it small enough to get in here, which I think is just about the thing there. But then, of course, I can't leave any air pockets, so very carefully filling back in, trying not to lose the lovely crevice effect that we've worked so hard to get. Squeeze those in, making sure, just as though it was an ordinary gardening plant, we've not got any spaces where we get an air pocket. And I'm thinking another nice little small one here is the draba, the Unionensis from China. If we can pull the same trick, we'll be doing well. They have been watered, so they're going to be okay about being squished up to a point, but I'll just try and do the same thing again. Now, I've taken the label out because, as you might imagine, big label in there is going to be pretty distracting. But what I will do before I finish and forget completely is just to do a rough sketch with the names marked on so that I know what it is I've got. Lovely Campanula Cantata, which I think will be quite an easy one to grow. Who could resist those lovely blue bells? So just to finish off, I'm going to water them all in well so I can see that all the compost has actually filled in all the pockets, we haven't got any gaps. And then I'm just going to dress the whole lot with some leftover horticultural grit, so we've got a lovely even and quite appropriate mulch. There we go, one crevice garden in a trough.